In Washington, here with us now, Chairman of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus. Reince, good to have you on set.
Good, very early morning. Happy to be here.
We'll discuss my negotiation debating position later, okay?
No problem.
All right, so
we'll work on it.
Better politics. Was that a dig at you guys, or what do you think the president meant?
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, hearing that clip and talking about dark money in politics and talking about bipartisanship in practice, but not in reality. Maybe I'm getting cynical about some of this stuff, but
no.
I just...
you know, it's
Reince? At this point, I really do think, in regard to your other T's, I know it's constitutional, but the president doesn't actually have to deliver the speech. He could actually email it out and we could read it. I hope that, maybe this the good parts. I hope that the president is serious, you know, about working together. I think that we could get a lot done. I think that if the president went down to Mitch McConnell's office and said, let's start with those 360 bills, many of which were drafted by Democrats, many of them were passed with a bipartisan vote, I think that you could find some common ground. I just don't believe that the president actually wants to find that common ground. I don't think he really does care about dark money in politics because he raised more than anybody. And so, you know, even the things he believes in, I question whether he actually cares a whole lot about it. As far as leading in the rest of the world, I mean, we know what's happening in regard to ISIS. We know what's happening in Iraq. We know what's happening in Yemen and Syria. Russia is pulling ships into Havana. I mean, so this alternative universe in regard to foreign policy. The problem a guy like me has, and people like us have, is that he's a hard person to believe at this point, whether it be things you think he should believe in, like dark money in politics, or
here's the problem:
foreign policy.
I think the same could be said for your party. And so let me ask
he's
you
the
this.
leader, but he has to lead, and it's not easy to lead. I'm not suggesting it's easy.
I totally agree with that. Reince, so let me ask you, I'll put the question back to you, to the first part of what you said. You sound so conciliatory and sensible. I would say some might argue that members of your own party don't sound that way. Is that true? Are there ways that your party could improve so that something could be done?
I think listen, I think there's always room for improvement on both sides. There's nobody that's perfect. I just think it takes an extraordinary leader in America, in the White House, to bring people together, to bang heads together and say, well, let's try to figure this out. You know, Paul Ryan, I mean, in his response, he was on television last night. One of the things he said is, yeah, we can find common ground on loopholes. We can find so it's not like people are just coming out swinging here trying to figure out how we can just blow all of this off. So, but I think it really does take a president who believes in the things that he says in theory, but to take it into practice.
Is there a way of calling them on it? Is there a way that the Republicans can say, all right, Mr. President, let's do this. Pick one.
Certainly. I mean, I do, and I go back to this as a theme because I do think that we've got some common ground that was sitting in Harry Reid's desk that we can start with. I do think that we can say, well, Keystone Pipeline is one. You know, if you look at that bill, you've had multiple Democrats already out there supporting it. You had Mary Landrieu trying to get it done on her own. Didn't happen. We had a dozen Democrats vote for the 40-hour work week last week, and the president immediately said, well, I'm going to veto both of these things. Well, okay, well, what can you believe in?
Can I ask you about immigration reform? In the official GOP response, it wasn't mentioned, but in the official language GOP response, it was. Well, a cynic might read into that a little bit, but I'm not a cynic. Can you explain what happened?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think, look, I did an actuality yesterday, too, so that we sent it out to all the affiliates that, you know, if you can take clips. I think that in today's political world, you're going to have, and I think if you look on the Democrat side, you're going to see almost every senator and every congressman send out a press release with their response. I don't think it's that strange to have multiple people giving multiple responses.
Yeah, but why not immigration in the official response in English?
Because I think the president's kind of screwed things up in regard to immigration reform by overreaching, by taking his executive action, and I think he, by his own.
Wouldn't that be why you bring it up in the response?
Well, I mean, you know what? I think we've been talking about this executive amnesty action that the president's taken illegally for a long time, and I think until that gets resolved, it's very difficult to go back and conduct any other kind of immigration reform. Look, I'm not the policy guy. I certainly have a lot of opinions, as you can tell, but But I do think it comes back to leadership. And I think, and the one thing I want to say that I think is, I'm being genuine, we want a strong president. We want the president to lead and to shine abroad. We need him to shine abroad. He's not. And I think even people that are on the Democratic side of the aisle would agree with me. I think that's what we right now desperately need in America and in this world, is a foreign policy leader in the White House, and the president isn't doing it.
What's the strategy behind the tighter debate schedule?
Well,
and leaving MSNBC out?
I think the strategy is that, number one, I think we're going to have a pretty broad field, as we all know. Yeah. And I think intrigue
every day.
And so I think intrigue, drama, interest, I think that can be very good and beneficial for a party, but it can be very dangerous as well. And it's dangerous if you don't contain the process. So I want a shorter process. I don't want a 6-month process. I want a 60-day process. I don't want 23 debates. I think we all can agree that's a little bit out of control.
No.
I think having But having 9 debates or 8 or 9 debates, I think is a reasonable amount of debates. It gives our people plenty of time to argue. And I guess it's also an admission that while I can't always control everyone's mouth, I can control how long we have to kill each other. So, and I think that's important.
Is that your big concern going into, is this your big concern going into 2016, that the party will just implode on itself because of how many candidates there are?
I don't think imploded is good, but it's certainly...
Well, you said kill each other.
Listen, certainly I would admit that it puts the onus on the party and containing the field more so when you have this big of a crowd that's running for president. So certainly I think it's good for us if we can contain the process reasonably. And that means us being about perfect. And I think that's what it's going to take.
All right, Reince Priebus, thank you. Very nice to see you,
nice
as always.
We didn't get to the Packers.
Oh, well, do you want to talk about that?
Well, as I said, there was not and is not enough Miller Lite in Wisconsin.
No, there's not. It's
to contain those sorrows.
It's painful.
Okay. It's like being dumped in high school.